In the sleepy town of Greenville, Tennessee, life moved at a slow, comfortable pace. The town was small enough that everyone knew everyone else, where you could walk down the street and wave to your neighbors without feeling like a stranger. The air always seemed fresh, with the scent of freshly cut grass in the summer, and the sound of children playing echoed from the local parks. Greenville was a place where neighbors shared stories, small-town businesses thrived, and the pace of life made everything feel safe and predictable. But in the early hours of June 13, 2022, that sense of peace was shattered. A 19-year-old boy, beloved by everyone in town, was found dying on the sidewalk, his life slipping away in the streets that he had walked so many times before. Trey Noah had been shot multiple times. The questions began almost immediately. Who could have done this to him? And why? Trey was everything to Greenville. A vibrant, openly gay young man who had an unshakable spirit and a heart as big as the town itself. He had no enemies, no history of violence, and was known for his kindness and generosity. His murder sent shockwaves through the community. It was a senseless crime that left people struggling to make sense of the horror. Was it a hate crime? Or was it something darker, something personal, that no one could have ever predicted? This is the tragic story of Trey Noah's life and the investigation that followed his untimely death. A story of a small-town community left in shock, a digital manhunt that would uncover truths no one was prepared to face, and a grief-stricken family searching for answers. Trey Noah was everything you could hope for in a young man. Born in 2003, he was raised in Greenville, where life was simple yet fulfilling. He was the kind of person who lit up a room with his laughter and made you feel like you mattered, whether you were a lifelong friend or a stranger in need. His charisma was infectious. He had the rare ability to make people feel seen and heard. Trey wasn't just another friendly face in the crowd. He was an active part of his community, always helping out, organizing events, and reaching out to others. Whether it was volunteering at the local food bank, organizing a fundraiser for a school event, or just offering a listening ear to someone who needed it, Trey was always there. He was the glue that held the community together. Seen a young man with a heart full of love and a desire to make the world a better place. But what made Trey even more remarkable was his openness. In a small town like Greenville, where not everyone was accepting, Trey was openly gay and wore that part of himself with pride. There was no fear in him, no hesitation. He lived his truth every day, proudly, without apology. For the LGBTQ+ community in Greenville, Trey represented a new kind of freedom. He was their voice when they couldn't speak, their example when they needed one. He was the proof that it was possible to be both proud of who you are and accepted by others, even in a town where not everyone understood. His bravery became a beacon of hope, a light for others who felt like they couldn't be themselves in a world that often told them to hide. But how could anyone harm someone who had so much light to share? For those who loved Trey, his murder left a cavernous hole in their hearts. They couldn't understand why someone would harm a person who had nothing but good intentions. Trey had no criminal record, no history of conflict, and was well liked by everyone he met. So why him? Who would want to take the life of a young man who was adored by his friends, family, and the entire town? Was it a random act of violence, or was it something more sinister? But then came that fateful night. On June 13, 2022, around 2:37 a.m., the quiet streets of Greenville were shattered by the sound of gunfire. It rang out through the dark, silent air, jolting the town from its peaceful slumber. By the time the police arrived at the scene, Trey Noah was already lying on the sidewalk, his life slowly ebbing away. He had been shot multiple times. The officers tried desperately to save him, but it was clear that this young man, who had so much more life to live, wouldn't make it. How could someone so full of life be taken so suddenly? Trey had no criminal record. He was well liked by everyone in town. So why was he targeted? Who could have done this? Was it someone who didn't like him for who he was? Was it a random act of violence? The police were left with more questions than answers, and the community was left in a state of shock and disbelief. The tragedy left his family, his friends, and the entire town reeling. This wasn't just another statistic. This was someone who was loved, someone whose future had been stolen from him. The question of why hung in the air, like a dark cloud over the entire town. Could it have been prevented? Could this senseless violence have been avoided? Greenville had always been a town built on trust and community. It wasn't just a place to live. It was a place where people cared about each other, where the lines between neighbor and friend were often blurred. Trey's death felt like a personal attack on the very fabric of that community. His murder left everyone in a state of disbelief. How could something so horrific happen in a town that had always felt safe? Was this the world we live in now? A place where no one is truly safe, not even the most beloved among us? In the hours following his death, the entire town came together. They held candlelight vigils, gathered outside of local businesses, and leaned on each other in an effort to make sense of it all. But no one had any answers. Only fear. Fear for their own safety. Fear that the person who killed Trey was still out there. And fear that this might not be an isolated incident. In the LGBTQ+ community, especially, the fear was palpable. Many wondered if this was a targeted attack on Trey simply for being who he was. When someone like Trey, someone who was out and proud, gets murdered, you can't help but wonder, said one local activist. Is this what we have to fear every day? Is this how the world sees us? Could this happen to anyone? The fear was real, but as the investigation began, the truth about Trey's death would reveal a much more personal and shocking story. The investigators would soon learn that Trey's murder wasn't driven by hate, but by something much darker. Something that had been simmering beneath the surface for much longer than anyone could have imagined. And as the investigation unfolded, it quickly became clear that the answer wouldn't come from witnesses, as there were none. But the one thing that could provide some clarity was technology. Surveillance footage from nearby cameras became the key to solving the mystery. It wasn't much, but it was something. Detectives began tracking a car that had been seen near the crime scene, running the license plate through databases. The hunt was on. The breakthrough came when they identified the car's owner, Alonzo Al Little. At first, Little didn't seem to be the kind of person who would commit such a violent act. He was calm, collected, and appeared to have no motive, but the evidence began to pile up. Little's connection to Trey was undeniable, and soon enough, the investigators began to put together the pieces of the puzzle. And Little initially denied everything. He answered questions with ease, his demeanor unshaken. But as the detectives pushed harder, presenting him with more and more evidence, his facade began to crack. The psychological pressure took its toll, and Little's calmness slowly gave way to the truth. What would make a man, seemingly so normal, do something so horrific? Was this a tragic misunderstanding? Or was it a personal vendetta? It turned out that the murder was not about hate. It was about a deep personal anger that had festered over time. The dispute between Trey and Little had been brewing for weeks. What had started as a minor disagreement had escalated into something much darker and more tragic. Al Little wasn't a hate-driven killer. He was a man consumed by rage, by anger that had built up and erupted at a moment when he least expected it. What was meant to be a minor argument spiraled out of control in a way that no one could have predicted. In the end, it led to the senseless death of a young man who had no reason to fear for his life. As one of Trey's friends put it, Trey Noah may no longer be with us, but his memory lives on in the hearts of those who loved him. His tragic death serves as a painful reminder that sometimes violence doesn't have a rhyme or reason. It's not always about hatred or bigotry. It's the result of personal demons that get out of control. Could Trey have been saved if the situation had been handled differently? Could the anger have been defused before it spiraled so violently? The death of Trey Noah, though senseless, would leave an indelible mark on the town of Greenville. It served as a tragic reminder that sometimes the worst violence comes not from strangers, but from the people closest to us, those we think we know. The memory of Trey Noah will live on in Greenville, not just as a victim of violence, but as a symbol of what it means to be truly authentic, to live your truth despite the consequences. His death, though painful, will continue to inspire others to be open, to be kind, and to live with love in their hearts. What lessons can we take from Trey's life and from his death? Is there hope in a world where tragedies like this are all too common? What do you think of this case? Do you believe it was preventable? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime stories.